It is our great pleasure to have Jean-Christian Bourcart join us tonight for our lecture series. Jean-Christian got his start as a wedding photographer before moving on to photojournalism. He first gained recognition in the art world for Infertile Madonnas, 1992, a series of photographs taken in Frankfurt brothels. This was followed by Forbidden City, 1999, an investigation of swinging in S&M clubs taken with a hidden camera. Traffic, 2004, a study of commuters caught in traffic jams, and if not, death would have overtaken you, an autobiography mixing text and photographs. In Collateral, 2005, he projected photographs of Iraqi war victims on houses, churches, and supermarkets in the American countryside. In 2009, he directed his feature movie, Memories of the Days to Come. In 2010, he documented the city of Camden, New Jersey, for which he won the Prix Nadar for the best photographic book in 2011. And I believe there's a few more days left in your show in Brooklyn?
Yes, there's a show. It's an art center called Invisible Dog.
Invisible Dog, Brooklyn.
It ends February 2nd.
Okay. And a screening of movies on Thursday?
Thursday night, yes.
Okay. Jean-Christian has also been the recipient of the Prix Niepce 2010, the Prix du Jeu du Pomme, and the World Press Award 1991. His work has been exhibited widely, nationally and internationally, and is represented in the collections of the Museum of Modern Art, Chrysler Museum of Art, Musée d'Art Moderne et Contemporain Genève, Maison Européenne de la Photographie Paris, and the Fonds National d'Art Contemporain Paris. On a personal note, I've crossed paths with JC many times over the years, and his work is like a long and really fascinating book. So it is our great privilege to have you here tonight. Thank you for being our guest speaker.
Well, thank you, Jaime, but you said everything now. Like, I don't know what can I say. Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you and in that school that I didn't really know except from outside. So we are going to, I'm going to show you some pictures, of course, and it's going to be a little bit chronological from the beginning of my career and so on. And, I started to work for a photographer as soon as I failed my high school diploma, and I already knew I wanted to do that, and I started to take wedding photographs. I like that because I could only work on the Saturday and have the rest of the week to do what I wanted and also start a personal project. But as I was, at that time we were shooting, of course, film, and we were developing all the pictures in a lab, and we were presenting those pictures the same night for the people to buy the photos. And I started, and there were hundreds of pictures coming out of this big machine, and I started to fall in love with certain images and collecting them. So I started a work of appropriation like that, even if I didn't know that it existed as an art practice. So none of those pictures had been taken by me. It's really the pictures, the way I found them. And at that time, the photographers were doing those double exposures with like filters, you know, two exposures like that, and having those kind of weird effects. And yeah, what to tell you? It's for me. It's really about, you know. I mean, I'm touched by people in general, and maybe it's what I've been doing all my life, photographing people, and it's like something about the big human comedy and big human tragedy sometimes. And also, I was fascinated how, you know, you have those traditional poses when you have the spouses that look behind, they walk toward their new life, and they look behind, and the photographers try to make those poses all the time. And in that case, of course, the future is not that bright. So, of course, some kitsch also, some kind of popular, like representations, and some kind of mystery sometimes, like what was the interaction between the photographer and the people, what kind of story they were telling each other, you know. I was interested by that too. At the same time, a little bit a social reportage about this Parisian suburb, those Parisian suburbs. I think the photographer wanted to do the contrary, you know, but it's working like that too. And there are other pictures I don't show you, but when they're getting dressed and so on, some are pretty interesting, let's say. Without Photoshop, huh? It's like and it's touching for me. It's touching to think that if all those pictures would have been lost if I didn't collect them. And of course, there are a lot of others that had never been collected, and they're lost forever. Yeah. Happy I did not marry. I didn't marry her, but okay. So I was telling you, at the same time I started to do personal work, which was just jumping on people with my flash and like scare them, and like usually tourists or like different places, and I started to work for. With those pictures, I went to see a newspaper called Libération, and started to work for them. In fact, it's the picture of my first command for them. My first command in the press in general. And it was in first page. After they sent me to Festival de Cannes Festival. So I did a lot of portraits of celebrities and political people and things like that. I don't know if you know Bruce Gilden. Yeah, well, I would say it was. I had a Bruce Gilden style a little bit, except it was square. I didn't know him, in fact. So again, I guess we find elements of weirdness or like bizarre, or this kind of how people interact each other, something like that. Then I started to work for more like magazines, like the equivalent of Newsweek or so on. And for that assignment, I was sent, and I started to work on color. was sent by the magazine Marie Claire in a brothel in Frankfurt, Germany. And so there are buildings full of rooms like that, and the women live in those rooms, and they work almost 24 hours a day, and it's kind of sad, but at the same time, I was kind of fascinated by the aesthetic of it. So, and it's forbidden to photograph over there. It's forbidden for women to enter, and it's forbidden to photograph. So I did a hole in my jacket, and I put a little camera, and I started to shoot undercover with it was negative film, 1600, and I would develop at the Chinese place at the corner, and had those small prints like that. And I did that for a couple of days. I don't know if the magazine, I don't think they were very happy with the result. I think they were not expecting that. But in fact, that subject. I showed those pictures, those little prints, to a gallerist in Paris who was really starting to show photography. At that time, there were not any photo galleries, or very little, very few. And he proposed me a show. So it was my kind of first real show in the art world, and we are talking about that. And after that, this guy was also preparing the first show of Nan Goldin, and it's how I met her, and also basically how I am here, because it's a long story, personal story, but I married the assistant of Nan Goldin, and Suzanne, her mom, is here, so it's also a family story. All that start to be all together. But to go back to the subject, what was really difficult is like I had this little camera, and I could not take the pictures. I was like a client walking in the corridors, you know. But if I wanted to take the picture, I had to stop. And at the moment I would stop, the woman would look at me because they thought I was interested. It's what's happening, you know. The men walk on the corridors, and so I stop, the woman look at me, I take the picture, the camera makes some noise, I have to cough, and I leave. It's very embarrassing. Really, it was terrible. And few times, each time I was changing the film, the camera was automatically would put the flash on. Sometimes I had the flash that goes off my clothes, and they run after me. I was like, what are you doing? And it was really terrifying and terrible. But at the same time, I really got what I wanted, that those places where they are, how they are, you know, it's like there was no other way to document that without stealing the pictures. Like that, you know, this idea that the photographer always influences the scene. And that situation, I was sure I was not influencing the scene. And the first show I did, so I just rephotographed little parts of my prints and print them big, and it was more like those big, very grainy woman, like almost full-size pictures that I showed. I was very lucky. The MoMA bought some of those prints at that time, and I didn't know anything about the art market and so. Few years later, in 92, 93, there was this war in the Balkans, and I decided to go over there. I was not on assignment. I was really like trying to understand by myself what was going on. And I had no experience of those kind of situations, so I was just wandering with my Rolleiflex and taking pictures and trying to understand what could be done or what was going on. And it was pretty dramatic situation. They were in Sarajevo, the Serbs were all around, and for 2 or 3 years they were shooting at people, and people were really like starving. And it was pretty dramatic. But at the same time, I realized that I was not really the photo pure like hot news photojournalist thing was not for me. I really could not do that. It was sorry?
That's great.
Ah, thank you. And in fact, I came back. At the same time, I was asking myself, what could we do? I mean, how can we leave those people get killed 2 hours from Paris? And I was really wondering what we could do for to get involved and to do something with them rather than on them, you know, like a photojournalist, they arrive, they shoot, they go back, and that's it, and they go to the next story. So I decided to write a story and shoot a movie, a feature movie. And I came back with a small crew of friends, and we spent months trying to do this movie, and we did it. In fact, it was not easy because we had no idea how to make a feature. But make a feature during a war is without electricity and so on. It was pretty challenging, but interesting story. And the film was released and had some interesting success. So it's interesting experience also because it's like in the movie because we use those like sets of the war, and the people were the real people. So there's this kind of interesting friction between what is real and what is not.
Did you go with a story, or did you go more?
Yeah, in fact, I started to write a story based on fait divers. How do you say fait divers? On
Different times.
what? You know, small news of, in fact, a couple that tried to escape, and they managed for the 2 sides to let them pass cross a bridge. And in fact, they were shot in the middle of the bridge, and they stayed there for days and days. So it's a story of a couple. I mean, part of the story is a couple trying to live, but also we developed the story with the people we were working on. It's like it was really collaborative work with the people over there. This is the library. They really try to destroy the whole civilization and like multicultural country. It's a pretty sad story. 96, I arrived. I come to New York, and I had this fantasy of New York of the 80s, you know, this crazy life and city of freedom and you know, city of pleasure. And I tried to find that, and I had kept my jacket, you know, with a hole and my little camera. So I took it out, and with the same technique, I started to investigate swinging clubs and S&M clubs. Wow, the weird reproduction. And for me, it was not too much the sexual aspect that was interesting, but more like those visions, you know, like those. For me, it was like going down to the psyche of humanity, you know, those places where that are between, you know, we are not sure if it's hell or paradise, or it's things happening, or you're not sure what, you're not sure who is who, the identity of the people, the sex of the people, that is a bit confused. I like that that atmosphere, and also those places where basically you can do a lot of things you cannot do in other places, and it looks like a madhouse, but somewhere I was thinking maybe it's necessary to have places like that, like people, they can express and do what the fuck I want. Oh, sorry, what I want. And here, this interesting picture where you can see me, I'm like the only dressed guy. And everybody's kind of looking at me, but again, I have to stop to take the picture. I cannot walk, and I'm weird because I'm always not doing the right thing, and everybody, and I'm scared, and everybody. Sometimes people see something, but they are not sure, and sometimes I have to be in those places where everybody's naked, so I'm naked with my jacket, and so it's complicated. Or just reminding that, it makes me like sweat. And again, I mean, we're watching like those slides, this projection is very different when you see the prints that are very saturated and yeah. Okay, somebody could ask me about how I can violate the intimacy of people. So somebody wants to ask me that? Huh?
How did you the question?
No, I mean, they are real people, and I photograph them, and maybe somebody in the class will be in the picture. You know, I mean, it's like it's always a difficult question, like revealing the risk of revealing some activities of those people and making it public.
How do you feel about that, and the idea of the surveillance of these people who think they're in a private space?
I feel okay because I think there's very little chance. In fact, I'm not a big, very famous artist, so it's not a very large distribution and things like that. And when we publish a book, we show it to a lawyer, and we look really carefully who could be recognizable and things like that. On those days, it's easy, you know, this guy you can get rid of here, you know that very well. If it's necessary, you can alterate the face without altering the sense of the picture.
Are tattoos a problem with that sort of thing?
Why do you ask the question? For that same reason, you mean like people being recognizing?
They're a little bit more identifiable than the face. I mean, I can hardly see faces, but if these people were heavily tattooed, I think.
Yeah, but there are not that many tattoos, in fact. It's more like at that time it was not that current, that frequent. Same thing, you can alterate them pretty easily.
But I don't think you go to these places expecting privacy. Right? 20 people in the room.
Yeah, but you don't also expect your kid to go to a bookstore and look at a book and see, hey, Papa. That's no, you're right. And in fact, it's what interests me is like how people share their intimacy in public space. That's pretty amazing to me. I would never do that. So we were living on Canal Street, Canal on Broadway, so a lot of traffic. And I wanted to do something about the car culture that is so important for American culture. And basically I started to photograph people in traffic jams. And I had this big lens, long, like 300 millimeters, even with a doubler, like 600. And I would go down and usually end of the day when the light is a little bit low and shoot people in the cars or in the buses. And in fact, I was, most of the time they would see me, so I was shooting them looking at me, and this kind of interaction that is, I think that makes, that put some tension in the photographs. So that's interesting. Men were much more likely to hide themselves than women. I was wondering why, and of course a woman told me, I asked, a woman told me, well, it's because we're more used to the male gaze. But the idea also would be that if a woman would have done that, maybe she would have had much more woman gaze eventually, male gaze, yeah. So yes, for me it's like about this. There's something about intimacy again with the car and so on, but also this something about like these cars being those dangerous, toxic boxes where people spend a part of their life, you know, another, and yeah. And people are very close because they are like close-ups, but we are in that almost intimate relationship, but in fact there are a lot of barriers and glasses and yeah, it's like at the same time very close and impossible encounter. If you have questions, don't hesitate, huh? Please, or commentaries. I know we're going to have a little bit of time after, but you can also intervene during the projection. Also, most of those pictures were taken just after, in 2001, like, or 2002, and there was a really weird atmosphere in the city. I don't know if you remember, but I think you can feel it also in the pictures, like people are tense and I don't know what's going on. except this gentleman who looks very happy. So we're in during the first Iraqi war, 2006, 2007, I think, and I'm on holidays upstate in this very nice little village, and but I know that the war is really bad, and they're killing a lot of people. Americans are killing a lot of people, or a lot of people are being killed. And there's this Bush is just re-elected, and I'm really pissed off. I see all those cars with stickers, support our troops, and not one word about Iraqi victims. So my first idea was to get images of victims from the web, and do like stickers and go by night sticking behind the cars of the and those stickers that are really difficult to get rid of. And I would imagine those guys driving around with support our troop on a very, very bad picture on the side. Until the moment where they realize and they have to scratch it. This idea that you have to make the victims disappear. But I was not courageous enough, so I just transformed those pictures I found on the web I photographed them and made some slides, and I would drive around by night and project them on the countryside.
While you're doing this, do people see you?
Not too much, no, because I try to be discreet. I didn't want to be stopped, and I had some problems already with the federal agents and things like that, and it's like really just basically I did it for the pictures. And anyway, if people would see it, they would say, "Ah, what that? That's gross." They could not relate it to the war and things like that. But at the same time, I did some kind of, archives about, like, the horrors of the war of Goya, this kind of little relevé of what's, I wonder what kind of munition does that kind of,
When you conceptualized the project, did you think of it as a book project or as a gallery show, or what was the ultimate?
I had no idea. And in fact, I didn't do anything with it, except I put it on my website. And a few months after, I started to receive weird emails, and I had a lot of traffic suddenly on this blog, Boing Boing, talked about it. And I realized there was, because there were no images of victims, so a lot of people started to talk about it and say, it's bad, why does he do that, it's disgusting, but no, it's necessary, and so on and so on. So I found interesting the fact that I took images that existed on the web, put them back in reality, and put them back on the web, like some kind of recontextualization, and suddenly people could see them more, let's say. Interestingly, a lot of those pictures are taken by American soldiers and and they put them on a friendly website. It's where I found them. And it's weird because it's forbidden after it was Abu Ghraib, and they are not allowed to do that, and they were still doing that. So I think there's something very strong in that relationship to, like, I don't know, like the hunters with animals, or.
You're inside of a house there?
Yeah, it's our house.
Your house?
Yeah. I did not sneak into something. I love Martha Rosler. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not really directly at that moment, but I love her work. So, yeah, it was somewhere. This collage of, yeah, the principle is exactly the same. I don't know if you know that work, well, from the Vietnam War, when she, can you explain?
Yeah, she collaged pictures of soldiers into advertisements for home living magazines. So yeah,
That was on exhibit, I think, at MoMA.
at home
Yeah. But Heineken was Heineken much more sexual and less political. I'd say. Oh no, there's some political. You don't agree? Okay, you're right. Yeah, no, it was political too. So this series, I was trying to find something to do about the entertainment industry. So, and I started to be interested by that little window that separates the projector room from the public room. You know, when you're in the movies, you like look at towards the projector, and you have this little window through which the image is projected, and it's always full of dust. I don't know why, and this kind of weird texture. So I started to photograph that. And once again, I was doing something that is forbidden, and I had to try to cover the noise of my camera, find empty rooms, and people would call the security and so on, but it's how I like it. What can I do? I could have asked the movie theater to do it, but it wouldn't have been the same, you know, it's like. And in fact, here you see, you can also see the behind on the projector and so on. And I went very recently, and now they're kind of digital, so all the film and so on, all that apparatus is disappearing. The only thing recognizable is the silhouette. If not, if you try to do that with a landscape, it doesn't work. It's too confusing. And so we find, like in traffic series, for example, or even collateral, this idea of layer. You know, you're seeing one thing, but there's something behind, and there's some kind of confusion between what is, you know, or like painting question about the foreground and the background, something like that. And also what is real, you know, it's like and I like those ideas because it's connected for me with the idea that reality is like a onion, you know, there's only one layer and another layer and another layer, but in fact it's just illusion. So all those stars, you know, this idea that the movie industry, Hollywood industry is huge, it's really millions, thousands of millions of dollars. And in fact, when you have this ray of light, before it hits the screen, there's nothing. And I like this idea that so much that is completely immaterial. More recently, I was like maybe 2008. I really didn't know what to do with my life, and in fact, and I was kind of bored, and so I looked on the web for the most dangerous city in the state, and I found this place, Camden, on top of the list, like few hours from New York. I started to go over there, not knowing at all what I was going to find or what I was going to do. So just photographing, like wandering again, and of course, going to the worst places, like it's what we do, you know.
Not that different than Sarajevo. Sarajevo.
No. Yeah. I had dreams that of wandering through destroyed cities for a really big part of my life. So I guess I realized that. So I like this one. Never mind of the dogs, motherfucker. Be aware of me. But at the same time, there's no key. You know, it's like you can push the door. And I started to meet people. In fact, the most available people were the crackheads, drug addicts that were on the street. And so I started to take pictures of them and like against a little bit of money. And when I came back, I brought the prints back, and I was doing a diary at the same time. So, and in the show, I incorporate little parts of the diary. And here, I don't know if you read it, or you want me to read it, or you read it. It's just the reaction of the people when I bring back the pictures. Just really trying to incorporate in the story what was happening to me. You know, it's not about only about them. It's my experience, the white guy, you know, going to the ghetto, taking the pictures, and bringing back to the white walls of the gallery. You know, it's like I didn't want that. I mean, it was what I was doing, but what I wanted is to be clear that not pretend that, hey, this is a reality, look how bad it is. It is, hey, look, this is the white guy going to the ghetto. So it's why it was important for me to put myself in the text. And this is a view how I present the work with. It's just pinned on the wall, and these little pieces of text are just written on a photograph too. So for me, they have the same value. This is my room over there. Funny because I just took that little picture and I didn't see, because it was dark, that there were bullets here. But I took that, and in fact I show it with the, it's in the show. I collected few items also that I bring in the show. And yeah, I started to meet people and realize that we could have relationships. And this woman, I met her more than once, and each time she wanted me to take her picture, and just normal relationship with people. Oh, not that normal sometimes. I had some problems with them, but Audrey, I went back last week. After 3 years, I saw her on the street, and it was really, really moving. I was somebody from CUNY University, was doing a film, and she recognized me. She could remember exactly. We spent like 20 minutes together 3 years ago, and I gave her the pictures, and she was super happy, and the book, and it was really touching. One day I meet this guy who on the street, and he tells me he wants some work, and I tell him, yeah, I will pay you $20 each time you bring me into somebody's house, because I was okay with meeting people on the street. But so we started a relationship, and it's him. It's called Supreme. It's called Supreme, and little commentary on our relationship. basically I was dressed as a bum, you know. It's like I didn't want to, but for him, he didn't want to work with me because I was. For him, it's important how you look. So we were like inverse, you know. It's like
You went too far if you were this guy.
yeah. And it's him with his family. His girlfriend is dead. By the way, it's his neighbor. No electricity. Incredibly cold. But also there's normal life. I mean, people living there with families and, you know. On that much more violence. I mean, it's what I kind of discovered. It's like even if there's a lot of murders and so on, it's like it's not because you're going to walk on the street that somebody is going to attack you. It's like and I think there's a real stigmatization of those places because nobody wants to go over there because of their bad reputation. So it increases their isolation and things like that. It's really like a bad loop. But for me, it was really each time I go over there, there's always stuff happening, and it's really strong. I really have a strong relationship with that place. Any questions?
Where is it?
Camden. It's just in front of Philadelphia. So 1 hour and a half from here. And this is another view of the installation, and you see the text and the video. So basically you have three mediums together, and each one give a perspective quite different. So it's more like a kaleidoscopic approach. I started to shoot crowds around the world following when I travel, and usually I have some assistance with some light, wireless flash. So this is in Paris. And again, it's a little bit invasive, let's say, because, you know. Yeah. Uh-huh. I'm really close to the people. I'm really, I mean, the flash and so on. A lot of people are pissed at me. It's like, but at least I'm not hiding like I was when I was. You know, you can see the evolution from stealing the pictures of others, like in the wedding pictures, and after hiding while I take the pictures, and after being in relationship, more like in the Camden series, and now I'm in the middle of the crowd. And it could be also sometime. This is New York. You know Lorca di Corsia? Lorca di Corsia, yeah, because some people they tell me it looks like him. What can I do? This is in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. So each country completely different reactions to my presence. This is Shanghai, where I could really. Sorry?
What's the difference in
Yeah, Shanghai, for example, nobody came to me. There were really thousands and thousands of people. I think people were not very happy, but they didn't say anything. No police, nothing happened to me. Maybe also because I'm a foreigner. Cambodia, nobody cares at all. Paris, everybody tells you, hey, you're not allowed to do that. It's illegal. And they're like, complain, but they don't do anything. And this is Egypt, and it was really bad. After a few seconds, you had people coming on us, and either cops or people who bring us to the cops, or it was really, really difficult. In fact, we ended up in jail, and we had to have the embassy intervene because we didn't know. It was okay for me, but not that okay for my assistants because they were Egyptians. So, and it's like martial law, and because people were accusing me to be a Mossad agent, like which is great being a spy with a big camera on the streets. It's like
Not a very good spy.
yeah, not a very good spy. Yes. Dakar, Senegal, very difficult usually to take crowd pictures in Africa sometimes. And here it went okay, maybe for 2 hours. I could say that people were not very happy, but not too many complaints until I received a little rock in my back, and I stopped. It was not bad, but it could have been. I mean, the next one could have been worse. But you know, it's interesting for me, you know, how in that country particularly, or you compare that to China, where you have this huge uniformity of the people in terms of, you know, like how they're dressed and so on. And here you're going from that to that. So what you learn just by looking at the crowd. What we learn, and the amazing thing is, like, we showed that picture in Senegal, in Dakar, and the people could not see that it was a man. They could not. We were like, hey, there's a man around. No, in that picture, where is it? And they could not, because they are not used to it. And so different things like that interest me. Also the beauty of the people, how they are dressed and things like that. The white guy, of course, with the big machine.
And the point of using flash, is it because you like the lighting or because you want to spark something in the social?
I like the idea that from you know, it's a flow. Really, it's, you know, it's really continual flow, especially when you're with a long glance. You know, it goes very fast in your So from that flow, because of the light, you transform it into a scene, in a stage. It's staging. It stages the situation, and I like that. Like ordinary people, suddenly, because there's some light, they become like heroes. Or so after spending my life shooting other people, I thought I should turn the camera towards me, but of course I could not do it naturally, like because there's always, as we were saying, layers, something like that. So what I did, I took a black photography, glossy paper, and I used it as a mirror. I just photographed the reflection of in the paper, like using a lot of flash, a lot of light. What we hate, the photographers, you know, the little thing like that, were the things that were very interesting for me, because they were creating multiple images and something like that. And I was playing with pieces of ribbons or like little colorful things, you know. And once again, the prints are much more interesting than that because you have this kind of, I print them on the same paper, so they are glossy, and you have this kind of weird relationship between the surface of the paper itself and the surface of the what is represented. I photographed also friends and family. C'est Gabriela, Suzanne, you recognize her. Elio, it was Gabriela. Elio, my son. Marina, you know, the family. That's fantastic. And your servitor. And that's it. This is, we are going to stop here. Here it's more like a professional portrait, something like that. But I think it's more interesting to spend some time talking rather than looking at them. Thank you. So if you have some questions.
I was wondering if in Camden, New Jersey, so you didn't really have any threatening situations? Because I would assume, you would assume that you would have, whether it's like, an abandoned home that was, unsafe, or a person.
No, I got into problems, trouble, but it was always because I put myself in situations that were not okay. But I ended up being with a broken bottle here, but you know that little story, to make it short, one prostitute brought me behind her house, dilapidated house, and I took a picture. She was waiting for a moment to attack me, and I took a picture of her, and she jumped on me. She broke a bottle, and she threatens me like that, and I give her my wallet, and there's 40 bucks inside, and she takes 30 bucks, and she gives me 10 bucks. So, this kind of, and after, I could have seen her after, the day after, it would have been okay. We could have killed each other, but also this kind of situation, and yeah. But also, I was really paying attention when I was by myself in those places, because you can also always find, a junkie who really is crazy. I mean, there were very bad stories already this year, like a woman cut the head of her 2-year-old kid and put the head in a freezer, and other stories like that. So shit happens, but I was lucky.
I just was, thanks for coming, first of all, and I really enjoyed your work, and I think it's interesting, like, from going from a war photographer, just like an in-your-face street photographer, to Camden, to these pretty murderous self-portraits that you did.
Thank you.
Like, what, just your process when you pick up the camera, there seems to be struggle within you. How does that have to do with what you're shooting, and what does what you're shooting have to do with that struggle,
You're saying you feel that there's some struggle inside me?
For sure.
Yes. Oh, I'm troubled. I thought it was not that visible. Well, can we talk about that later?
Sure. Okay. All right. Then
No, it's a good question. But I think it's about that. I mean, creation is about, the trouble inside and trying to do something with it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not troubled enough, you have to find the trouble, because there's no... I mean, it's my understanding of the process is like, hey, go where it's really problematic, and you're going to find some interesting energy. It's like, this is where it's coming from.
I have an easier question.
Yeah.
Just like, there's this really long lens, and then there's like you kind of very close to stuff, too. Very different things. Like, I don't know. What are your choices or intent with that stuff? You know?
I'm not sure I understood the question.
The lenses, like you have some really long lenses, like in the street stuff and in the projector stuff and in the traffic stuff. And there's all this compression and sort of weirdness there. And then in Camden, it's like a very different
Yeah.
thing.
Well, yes, it doesn't really matter. I use zooms. You know, I'm very easy on technique. I have 2 zooms and I do zoop, zoop. And yeah, no, it's really, it depends. Yeah.
Your series, like, they seem like they could go on forever. Like, you could shoot on that same.
You mean it was too long?
What? But like, when do you know when a project is done? Like, when do you say, okay, I'm done? Because you can do that forever, all your subjects.
Yeah, that's you don't know that. You know, it's like sometimes it's because you show it, you do a book, exhibition, and sometimes. But even Camden, I went to Camden last week, and I'm like, I started to shoot. You know, and I'm not sure about that. Usually it's because you're bored, you're like, you want to do something else, you can't find anything interesting enough. I mean, you have the feeling that you're repeating yourself. It's like a love story, you know. It's like sometimes it's done and you're staying with the story for too long, and sometimes you short it too short. There's no rules, and it's really playing with what you can do, exploring, and at certain time it stops. It's finished. You don't want anymore. But for me, it could be I could spend like 2 years, 3 years on a project, and just forgetting it for a few months and going back to it, and there's not the pace is really long. I don't force myself, and it's happening. It's happening. If it's not, it's not.
Thank you.
Just real quick, you talked about the pace. Do you work on one project, or do you work on multiple projects at the same time?
Usually one, let's say. But for a long period of time, I don't know what I'm doing, like now. So I try different things until something solidifies. And today I did some photograms, like sticking paper, photographic paper on my face and developing. And tomorrow it can be something else. And just, yeah, there's those periods where I'm just trying stuff. And I really try, those days I try to pay attention to the process rather than just the result and what I'm going to be able to sell in Chelsea, to go on holidays. You know, it's like, it's difficult in New York because there's so much pressure on about the market that it's hard to stay true to yourself. And thankfully my wife, she tells me, you don't think of the result, you know, just be concentrated on the process. Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you're experimenting right now. How do you know when it's the right project? Like, is it a feeling in your stomach? Is it something like visual? How do you, like, what's that? How do you know?
You're not sure. You're not sure where it's good, because some projects they don't go very far, or nobody likes them. You know, it's like you work on the series and it's not very successful, or some. But I show, when I think I have something, I show it quite fast, quite quickly to some people, and I really on random people or close people, but. and I see their reaction, and it gives me an indication quite quickly if there's something there or not. Yeah, usually my wife is the first one to. I show her something, and she's like, because she's a teacher too. She has 40 students. She doesn't really enjoy, looking at my thing. And she's like, "What that?" It's like, and I know, and and really the Black Sheep project is because I did some tests years ago, and it was on a pile, but it was really, really bad. And she looked at it, she said, "Oh, what that?" And I knew that I dug that. And just to say, it's very important to have people to whom you can relate, to whom you can, this circle of people with whom you can discuss. It's really hard to do everything by yourself and having a point of view of your production, especially at the beginning. Yeah.
One final question, somebody? One more?
Can you imagine a moment when the preference of one of your subjects would carry weight with you? If somebody said, "Please don't use that picture of me," would that matter? Would it depend on something else? And if so, what?
It's funny because it never happened. I don't remember one moment where somebody told me that. But of course I would respect that. Yeah, there's no doubt.
So there's a difference between that and saying, "You're not allowed to do that," or "You shouldn't be doing that," or "What the hell are you doing?" Or
You're thinking of people in the crowd, for example? Yeah, in the crowd. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's a crowd, it's different. Yeah, I guess.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.